Is your child struggling with learning to read? Do you feel like there's something missing, but you're not sure what it is? If that's the case, then today I want to share the only two things that matter when your child is learning how to read. And this comes from a model called the Simple View of Reading that was developed by two psychologists, Gao and Tumner, and it was first introduced in 1986. And since then, it's been adapted as a model that lots of reading teachers and educators use to help explain how kids learn how to read. And I think that it's really valuable for us as parents that are trying to teach our kids how to read because it helps us know what we need to focus on in order to help our kids be successful. So here's the model. It says that reading comprehension is made up of two parts, and those parts are decoding and language comprehension. And I want to talk about what this means because I think it's really important in the process of teaching our kids how to read. First of all, the goal is reading comprehension. So that means that we want our kids not only to be able to sound out the words in the story that they're reading, but we also want to make sure that they understand what they're reading. And as an adult, when you're reading something that you can read well, you have reading comprehension. You understand what you're reading and you can learn from it or you can enjoy the story. And that's our goal for our kids too. So in the end, we want them to be able to have reading comprehension. And in order to get there, there's two parts that kids need to have. The first part is decoding, and that means that we need kids to be able to look at the words on the page and recognize those letters and be able to turn them into words in their brain. And so they can do that through the process of phonics. They can sound out the words. There may be some words that they recognize by sight that are a part of their sight word memory. No matter how it happens, kids need to be able to take those letters on the page and turn them into a word in their brain. And that's the process of decoding. And that's the first step that has to happen in order for kids to be able to read. And then the second thing that has to happen is language comprehension. So once kids figure out what the word is, they need to be able to connect that to some prior knowledge in their brain that helps them know and understand what word it is and what it means in the context of that story. The interesting thing about this model is that this is actually a multiplication problem. The product, which is reading comprehension, being able to read and understand, comes when you multiply their decoding skill and their language comprehension. And the reason for that is because if you think way back to elementary school math, you know that when you multiply something by 0, the answer is 0. So this is a way of showing that in order for kids to really be able to read well and to be able to understand what they're reading, they need to have both the parts. They need to be able to sound out the words, and they also need to be able to understand what those words say. And if kids have both of those parts, then they will be able to understand what they've read. But if they don't have both of those parts, if one of these parts is a 0, if either they can't understand what they read or they can't sound out the words, then the answer is going to be 0. They won't have any reading comprehension and they won't be able to successfully understand what they've read. So it's really important that we work on both parts with our kids. We need to work on being able to sound out words, and we also need to work on being able to understand the words. Okay, so let's talk about why that matters for us as homeschool parents. And I think that the biggest takeaway that we can get from this is that if we want to raise kids who are really strong readers, who can read well and who can understand what they've learned and who can enjoy stories and learn from them, if they have this reading comprehension piece, then as parents, we need to focus on these two parts. We need to focus on helping our kids learn this decoding skill of phonics, and we need to help them focus on the skill of language comprehension, understanding what they've read. And so if you have a child that's struggling with reading, you want to look and think about it and see which piece are they struggling with. If they're struggling with language comprehension, if they can sound out the words, but then they don't understand what the story is telling them, or they don't know what the words mean, then one of the best strategies is to spend a lot of time reading out loud with your child. The more books that you read out loud, the more situations and the more words your child will be exposed to, and the more likely they will be able to understand when they come to read those kinds of words and those kinds of stories on their own. If your child is struggling with decoding, they look at the word on the page and they can't sound it out, then you want to find a really good reading program that teaches letter sounds and blending those sounds into words step by step to help your child be able to build those skills. If you're looking for a curriculum like this, I actually have one. It's called Reading Better Together. And in this curriculum, it walks kids through the process of learning to decode over the course of 16 weeks, teaching all of the letter sounds and also how to blend those sounds into words. And then kids use the word that they know to be able to read stories alongside of you. So I'll put a link in the comments to where you can sign up to be the next to know when the curriculum is available again. If you have any questions about reading comprehension or how kids learn how to read, feel free to share those in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.